Well, it's finally here. If you've been watching my series, you've seen me preview every bowl game up to this point. I'm going to continue previewing every bowl game after this point. Unlike a lot of people out there, I think every bowl game is important. But we've reached the bowl games that people care the most about, the playoffs. This is the pinnacle of college football. This is my first playoff preview video. I'll be after this video. Quick turnaround. I'm going to preview the next playoff as well. This is the college football semifinal playoff game between number 4 Cincinnati, 13-0, going up against 12-1 Alabama in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Friday, December 31st. Alabama is 13.5 point favorites and given a 71.2% chance of winning. That's to be expected. This is a group of 5 team here in Cincinnati. You know, the upstart team that a lot of people didn't think were even going to get to this point. The 4th ranked team going up against an established Alabama team who has been here, done that. They expect to get to this level every single year. If they don't, it's like, if they don't get to the playoffs, it's like they failed in their season. That's the level of that Alabama has reached. That's the level of play that Alabama has now reached, where their expectation is playoffs. That's where they want to go, and ultimately national championship. If they don't win the national championship, it's a disappointment for Alabama fans. So it's expected that Cincinnati is the major underdogs in this one. It's going to take a lot. It would be historic for Cincinnati if they're able to win this game. We're going to talk about that and how they might be able to do that in this video. Also, it's not just a Cincinnati video, it's an equal video. I'll also be talking about Alabama and what they need to do to get the win that everybody expects them to get in this video. So, series history. These two teams have actually played before. They're 5-0. Alabama has won all the games in the series. The first game was in 1908. 16-0 win by Alabama, and then the last time that these two teams played was in 1990, a 45-7 win by Alabama. So these two teams have not played in the modern era of college football. It's about time. Cincinnati really establishing themselves in recent history as the best team in the group of 5 the last few years. I would say over the last 20 years, Boise State is the best team in the group of 5, but recent history, Boise State's taking a little bit of a back seat. They're going to get back in there, but that's not what this video is about. It's Cincinnati has definitely established themselves as that top team, and of course, Alabama over the last definitely 10 years has been the best team in college football, bar none. At least overall. Of course, they've been upset a couple of years, but overall, they've been that team. So it's definitely a great team, top of the group of 5, going against the top of the Power 5. This is, it's number 1 versus number 4, but when you talk about college football as a whole, these two teams represent the peak of their separate levels, because it really has become separate levels, of their separate levels of Division I FBS college football. So, record reviews for these programs. I thought Cincinnati was going to have a good year. I did not think that they were going to have a Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. That's a good pun right there. I'm going to chalk that up in the pun category. That's one for me. Anyhow, I thought they were going to have a good year this season, but I did not think they were going to go undefeated. They had some tough games. I thought Notre Dame might take them out. I thought Indiana might be tough to go up against after last season. A good year last season for Indiana, obviously not having the year that people thought they would come into the season, but I was looking at 10-2, and Athlon Sports was also saying 10-2. Cincinnati proving everybody wrong, breaking every expectation, getting that 13-0. For Alabama, actually shooting slightly below expectations with that, getting a loss. That was not expected for Alabama. 12-0 is what I thought, and so did Athlon Sports, and ended up getting 12-1, taking a loss along the way here for Alabama. We'll talk about that in this preview of the game, and we review these records. So how do these teams get to this point, get to these 13-0 and 12-1? Well, for Cincinnati, it started off, with some strong wins. 38-24 against Indiana, 24-13 against the then number 9, now number 5 Notre Dame. If Notre Dame had won that game, they would be in the playoffs for sure. So a good Notre Dame team, and that win has pushed Cincinnati with really a very weak schedule overall, especially compared to what Cincinnati usually plays, an incredibly down year for the AAC. That win against Notre Dame has, like a snowplow, pushed Cincinnati ahead because they kept moving Notre Dame up in the rankings, but they couldn't put them ahead of Cincinnati with that head-to-head win, and that win is what got Cincinnati into the playoffs ultimately in this one. However, they went on a bit of a skid here towards the end of the season. They won all their games, but they weren't like you would expect out of a playoff-bound team. 7-point win against Navy. A Tulane, a team that actually they were only up by 2 points at the half, ended up having to take a little bit of a fourth quarter push to get to a 3-score win ultimately in that one, but definitely you don't want to be down by 2 points, just up by 2 points against Tulane. Really terrible team out of the AAC this year. And then only an 8-point win against Tulsa. They kind of were able to pull things around with some big wins against SMU and Houston to end the season, but definitely kind of stumbling a little bit down the stretch when everything was on the line. So can they play up to the competition this one, stop playing down to the teams that they've played here in the last few down the stretch? Can they play up to the expectations, play up to this team? Can they finally show the Cincinnati that we saw earlier in the season and even last year? Can they show that in this game against Alabama? For Alabama, as always, great season for Alabama. You can pretty much say that every year almost. 42-21 win there early against Ole Miss, who was number 12 at the time, finished number 8 in the nation. 7-point win against number 21 Arkansas. That one was a close one. That was not a game that they should have been as close in. They also took 4 overtimes to get a 1-point win against Auburn, but they managed to pull it out at the end with a big win over Georgia, 44-24 against number 1 Georgia at the time in the SEC championship game, a team they may end up facing in the playoffs here. We'll have to see how that ends up working out. So the only blotch on their record, besides some of those close wins, which you really don't want, is Alabama's been close to maybe not being in this game with some of those close wins, but besides those close wins, the only real true blotch on the record was a 41-38 defeat by Texas A&M. Honestly, that is becoming a rivalry, a modern rivalry between these two programs. They've had each other's numbers back and forth. You can always count on that to be a close game. I think that played into it. Texas A&M, an incredibly hard team to face anyway. Their teams are great at home and they travel well as well. So Texas A&M, a tough one. I think that modern rivalry aspect might have played into that as well, and also ultimately a good team here in Texas A&M, but it was a loss by Alabama. Some people thought they might not even get into the playoffs after that, with so many teams with spotless records at the time. Some of those teams ended up stumbling. Alabama beating Georgia. You can't leave them out. Alabama ends up in the playoffs here along with Cincinnati at the number 1 slot. So top players of the game here, we're going to look at Cincinnati first. For them, it's going to be their quarterback. He's the best player on the team, and his performance is going to impact whether or not Cincinnati can win this game, just like his performance has impacted how well Cincinnati has done throughout the season. Desmond Ridder, the quarterback, he's a senior, 3,190 yards passing, 30 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, also run for 371 yards and 6 touchdowns. On the other side, facing him is a Heisman quarterback in Bryce Young, the sophomore out of Alabama, who has had an even better year, 4,322 yards passing, 43 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. I mean, it's incredible. Alabama just a quarterback factory, a running back factory, a wide receiver factory. I mean, anybody who goes through Alabama, you're touched by the gods, and you're going to have a great career. That's just kind of how Nick Saban is. But and that's because the best players in the country go to play for Alabama and for Nick Saban, so it's not a coincidence. But here, sitting Bryce Young, an incredible year for him, winning the Heisman, 4th in the country in passing, behind some good quarterbacks as well there. But overall, you're looking at the competition that he faced and the impact that his performance had. Definitely deserved that Heisman win, or earning that Heisman trophy. So what's the keys to the game here? Well, for Cincinnati, don't rely on tricks. Prove that you belong to be here. Now, you might need some tricks to win the game down the stretch, but think about Boise State in that 2007 Fiesta Bowl. Yes, at the end of the game, it's the tricks that everybody remembers, but prior to that point, before the 4th quarter, before Boise State kind of had to throw some tricks to win the game at the end due to some mistakes there, the announcers were actually saying how trick-free it had been. There hadn't been any trick plays until late in the 4th quarter, and Boise State had actually lined up and outmatched Oklahoma on every level throughout that entire game. And the trick creation is what people remember, but what really earned people's respect and the fact that Boise State had arrived was the fact they were able to go out and beat Oklahoma just running who they were. So Cincinnati, yeah, you're probably going to need some tricks plays. You're probably going to need some big breaks to beat this Alabama team. But ultimately, if you want to earn the respect, if you want to prove that you are not just some upstart, showcase group of 5 team, that the group of 5 as a whole and you as a football team deserve to be in the spotlight, deserve this moment, go out there and play Alabama at their level. Play your normal offense, your normal defense. Go out there and play traditional football that you've played all season to prove that you don't need random trick plays or some weird chance to win this game. You can go out there and win it by your own. Now, like I said, you're probably going to need some trick plays eventually or some lucky breaks. But to really go out there and earn respect, you're going to want to go out there and win it the right way, which is going out just running the team that you've been all season long and proving that it doesn't take being in the SEC or being in some Power 5 conference to go out and win these big teams. I mean, the Group of 5 has beaten the Power 5 routinely, especially the Mountain West, but other conferences as well have beaten the Power 5 routinely throughout the bowl season and the regular season this year. The gap between the Power 5 and the Group of 5 is not as big as everyone likes to pretend it is. So for Alabama, this game is not a guarantee. That's my key for them, is this game is not a guarantee. You give Cincinnati any chance, any hope, they are in trouble. You just almost came off a loss to Auburn, a team you definitely should have crushed, and you didn't. End up having to beat them in 4 overtimes. Cincinnati, incredibly motivated in this one, probably taking it a little bit more seriously because this is a historic moment for them. So for Alabama, go out there, you got to take care of business, but you also cannot think that anything is guaranteed in this. On any given Saturday, anybody can beat anybody, and just because they have a G5 symbol, it's not even physically there, but just because they have a G5 symbolic designator next to their name, and you have a P5, and you're this historic, definitely modern blue blood, but also a historic blue blood of college football that's dominated football for the last 10, 15 years. That doesn't mean that anything here is guaranteed. So go out and take Cincinnati seriously in this one. My prediction on this, I can't go out and predict a Cincinnati win here. If they were facing Michigan, I would say there's a good chance they could get a win. If they were even facing Georgia, I think they might have a chance. But against Alabama, against that offense that they're going to be facing, against Bryce Young, I just don't think that they're going to be able to come up with this. I think that they live up to the storylines and they play it close. A lot of people are saying it's going to be a close game. I agree with that prediction, but I think that Alabama ends up pulling out the victory, maybe a 2-score victory in the second half, as the depth. I mean, Alabama has 3rd and 4th string players that would be starters. I mean, they have 3rd string players that would probably be starters in the Power 5, and they have 4th string players that would probably be starters at certain group of 5 programs as well. So the depth that Alabama brings to the table, yeah, it's a one-off game that you only have to play them once, but the depth that they have overall, that second half, I think, is going to prove a tough one for Cincinnati as they kind of see their hopes fade a little bit as Alabama establishes themselves. Alabama's been upset before by teams that were worse than them on paper, at least, so Cincinnati can definitely get it done. But I think in this one, Alabama ends up pulling off the win, advancing to the national championship. So that's my predictions. Alabama advances to the national championship, and I am going to call under on the over-under. I do think that'll probably be about a 10-point win versus a 13.5, as is being predicted here. Thanks for watching this video. Make sure you like and subscribe. I'm going to be previewing the next playoff game here as soon as I'm done with this video, and I'm also going through and previewing every single bowl game this season. I'll put the link to that playlist in the description. Like I said, thanks for watching this video. Make sure you like, subscribe, and as always, go Big Blue!